Yeah, so thank you very much for the introduction. I understood none of it, but yeah. My name is Zoro Stasic. I'm coming from Serbia, and I'm development team lead at Automotive for Thrive Teams. So in my spare time, I like food, and I'm also one of the lead organizers for the next year WordCamp Europe in Basel. So maybe we are going to see each other there. So today talk, I want to introduce you a playground. So we are going to cover what is playground, why it's good for you to use it, where to use it, and especially where not to use it, and what are the limitations of the playground, because yeah, there are limitations that we need to talk about it. So just a quick question for the audience. Have any of you ever used the playground, or if you know what's the WordPress Playground? One hand, so yeah, that's good. So Playground is essentially a tool that you can spin a WordPress installation in your browser. And when I say in your browser, you don't need to have any configuration, any server, any database, anything. You just, on a click on a button, you can get a WordPress installation. And we are going to see a couple of examples. So like, you don't need any technical knowledge to run a WordPress. Uh, on the second question, why was it developed? At first, it was developed because of the Gutenberg. They use it to test PRs and to test a small feature. Because imagine if you want to test one small change, that I like to say, if you want to test like changing a color of a background from blue to red, you will need to spin up a new installation, you need to set up a new user, you need to set up a database, etc., just to test if the color is changed to blue. So that is the main reason why it was developed, because in one click you can spin up a server, you can change that, and you can see it right away. And we're going to see an example. As a note here, so I want to put a disclaimer at the beginning. This sentence, why is faster in some cases, not in all cases, and we're going to see when it's not faster. But let's focus on the good things now. So like, as I said, there is zero server configuration. It can run in any browser. It is like compatible with anything, and like just on a one button click. Also, two main places where we can use the playground is testing. So if you want to run any unit tests, if you want to run any kind of tests like the content test or a design test, or if you want to showcase your plugin or a theme, for example, you are creating a theme or a plugin, and you know when you go to WordPress.org and you see a theme and you like the theme, but you like the screenshot of the theme, and there is like live preview and you don't see anything. You cannot test anything. You cannot see a page template. In this case, when this is all over, WordPress.org will introduce that and you can find the theme, click it from browser, the WordPress will spin up and you can test everything that that theme has to offer. Also, before the question arises, this is not only for freemium plugins and themes. This can also be used for a premium one if you're developing your own, and we're going to see how. Also, the playground can be used for onboarding, because I have a lot of experience and I run a team of 20 people now, and it's very hard to onboard people for some new features. For example, if you hire a new developer and you need to showcase how your plugin is working, you need to wait for your DevOps or you need to wait for a server guy to get a new server, a new development, staging or whatever. Then you need to migrate the database, etc. That can be complicated, and the only thing you need from there is to log into WP admin, to add a plugin and show this is what it's doing. So like this can increase speed for onboarding, because like it's very fast to create something, and we're going to see that. Three bullet points I want to say as a very good place where this can be used is like if you're doing any proof of concept or any prototype or whatever you want. What this is? So like we also use it like for a testing or for Q&A if you're developing something. and we're going to see how you can automate that. But if you're developing something and you need to pass that feature to a Q&A, again, you cannot expect from a Q&A to set up a database, to set up all the environment, and then you see, for example, that on PHP 8, it doesn't work. And the QA, they tested on 7.2. Okay, yep, thank you. And then you see that you're testing on wrong PHP version, and this easily can be an issue. And in this case, in a single click of a button, you can change a WordPress version or PHP version or a theme or whatever, and we're going to see. And that is very good for testing because, again, if you said this doesn't work in some version, it's pretty easy to change and see what happened. Also, I want to, like I mentioned, for plugin and theme development, even if they are premium, you can easily set up the sandbox or a testing place. So for example, if your client wants to see, or if you want to see if you want to buy that plugin at all, every one of us wants to test it first. I like to see if it's actually solved my issue, but I don't want to get the null version, or I don't want to pay it and then ask for a refund. This is very easy. If you can implement it on a site, it can be part of the iframe or however you implement it. You can test it right out in a browser. And it says there is no complex database connection because, just to mention Playground, it does not use MySQL as a full MySQL. It used the light version. There's a limitation about that. We are going to go through there, but you cannot use all the queries that are available. Before the examples, I want to compare to the traditional development. And just a big note, the Playground cannot exchange fully the traditional development. So if you're doing any kind of integrations or you want to test importing 1,000 posts or 1,000 products, this is not made for that. If you want to test how your site is performant with 100 concurrent users or how it's performant under the big load, you cannot use Playground. It is not meant for that. The Playground is meant to have one user and to test other things. So but if we just compare a development, we can set this up in less than a minute. And if we are doing the complex development, we would need, this example, Docker or LAMP or MUMP, it doesn't matter. But to set all those things up, it will take time, especially if you want to switch from one PHP version, from one MySQL version. And then if you want to switch from Apache to Nginx, that can create problems. Also, one of the things that is good and quick to set up, we are going to see through the GitHub. But if you want to test another feature, you don't need to migrate the database, for example, because you need to set any other content. You can easily import content, test that, close the PR, said it's working, it's not working, and continue on. In the traditional development, this would be you wait for the environment 1 hour at least, and then you do the testing. And performance-wise, as it says, it's very very light. It's not heavy. You can run multiple instances on your local, or you can run it in a browser. And if you're comparing to putting the WooCommerce or WordPress with a lot of posts in a post meta, this is for developers, then you can see decrease in the performance and the site is going slow and the people cannot log in and they just wanted to test the page. And then there is background things that are happening. So if you're just testing, for example, the CSS or JavaScript or any template or any functionality, it's way faster than spinning up some big environment. I don't think it's moving. Yeah, now it's moving. So limitation. before we see real life cases. So the current limitations are that, for example, if you spin up a new instance, you cannot easily go, for example, to the theme and click add a new theme or add a new plugin. It won't work like that. It won't allow you because it is not, again, as I said, it's not a full MySQL instance. It's not a full PHP in the background. So like adding a plugin, theme, block, or whatever requires some scripting. I will show multiple ways how to do that, but like it's not easy for a user that is used to go to the WP admin and just click add a plugin. Also, one issue that can arise is that like it says temporary by design. So basically, if you run it in a browser, you do tests, you create a new post, you can create a couple of new pages. If you close the browser, everything is lost. So because as I said, there is no database, a real database. So if you close the browser, you can forget about all the changes. But there is a good thing, you can export all the things you've done, and then you can import them again for the next iteration. But you need to remember that because by the default, if you close the browser, everything is lost. Also, someone will say, can I test some PHP scripts or WP CLI scripts because I want my feature is dependent on that. You can, but it's not just easily I add a new template file or I just define a new WP CLI script. You need to load the files first. And what I mean by that, so basically when you have a traditional environment, you can just open the PHP file, go to your plugin, add a file, it will load because there are a lot of hooks and filters that are running before your plugin. In this case, you need to call them by yourself. You need to know exactly what you need to call before your plugin is available. And that can be a downside. Also, regarding the WP CLI, it is working. You can call multiple commands. You can create posts. We will see one example. You can add a page, you can add a user, you can change the password, etc. The issue here is that not all WP CLI commands are supported. So you cannot use fully WP CLI. So for example, if you're used to create a plugin via scaffold function, that will not work in the playground. You cannot scaffold a new plugin or a theme there. There is a current work that they are trying to achieve to support all the commands, but for now, this is limitation. It won't support, and especially if you have a custom one, you need to be careful how you are including the files from WordPress, because maybe the WP CLI command will not work in the playground. So to sum it up before the examples, when is good to use? So if you want to test a theme or a plugin or just a change that you're developing, like a feature or changing something, it's very good. It's very fast. If you have a QA, it is very fast for them. You can show them, you can spin up, you can create additional scripts. I will show that like in a click, or if you're using the pipelines or CI/CD, you can easily create like for whenever the developer push a change, that can be spin up in a new playground and someone can test even on a mobile phone. So that is a very good place to use this. Also, there is like for the schools and for the workshops, because I did the workshops, and like if the workshops is 2 hours and like I have 20 of you coming to workshops, until all of 20 set up a WordPress. This is a simple setup of a WordPress. I know it's a funny, but we lose like 20 to 30 minutes because someone cannot set it up. I don't know my password for WP.org, or I don't, it, and like we spend time basically for nothing. In this case, we just share a link with the simple steps that I can prepare in advance, like this plugin, that theme you're going to see. Everybody click on a link and we need like 2 minutes and we can start. Even we can start developing. That's way faster for a workshop. Also for education in schools, or I did a talk for kids, like if you want to introduce someone to WordPress, you don't want to start with, you need a database, you need an Nginx, you need a server, and then like manage server or the dedicated server. we are getting into those details that the person that wants to get introduced actually doesn't care about that. I just want to see a WordPress. I will just add, I will create my blog. I want to test things. And also very good place if you're selling or creating or developing, as I said, plugin theme, it can easily be showcased to the customers and to say, okay, we have this functionality, click here, test functionality, is this what you want? In the traditional set, now if I'm having a team, if someone wants to test the functionality and if it's a premium, you need either to buy it or you get it from someone else, or I need to give you the access to the site. That complicates things. And again, just a note when not to use it. Like there is that case also, as I mentioned. And I said, like, if I'm going to do a big integration, like if I'm doing a Woo store with like 10,000 products and I want to test update of a price, for example, this is not meant for that. You cannot run that kind of a script inside the browser. It will just be so slow and you will not get anything from that. Also, if you want to test like third-party integrations with like any of the system that is available, it is not very good because it's not a stable connection. You cannot add things. Even if you save API keys and everything, it's not perfect for those things. So any third-party development or connection should be done still in a traditional way. So I compile a couple of cases and real world examples just to see what I'm talking about and how that looks. Because it's not a workshop. This is an example, and I put it below. This is like what you get if you go to WordPress Playground. There is a big blue button, I call it. Just clicking on that button and waiting for like 60 seconds, you will get a default theme. You will get access to the admin. You don't need even to put a password. It won't ask you for a password. It will give you access to WP admin, and you can start working. And the pop-up on the top right, I don't know, I know it's a little bit small. Those are settings. And those settings, like for a person who is not a developer, you can switch the WordPress version, you can switch the PHP version, and you can switch the language of the WordPress as well. So for example, if you want to test with the Greek version or with the Serbian version, you just switch it there, because like how many of you, if you're new to that and you don't even know that you can switch the language, for example. So like this is pretty good, and there are a couple of checkboxes. One of the checkbox, if you click, all the data you change will be stored in your browser. So even if you close, you can restart it, but bear in mind, if you're running this in incognito or you clear your cache from a browser, the things are gone because this is not a file to store. And you can also export the settings that I was talking about. So basically, without any knowledge of how to set up a WordPress, you can visit the WordPress Playground site. It's on make.wordpress.org. One click, you'll get this, and you can test whatever you want. Before we start other examples, I just want for the people to get to know things regarding the WordPress Playground, and I will define it as 4 important things here. So like blueprints. Blueprints, there is a community behind this, like behind everything, that the people already created scripts for you. For example, if you want to spin up a WooCommerce site with 10 products, with shipping enable, etc., you can just download the script, run it either in your browser or via your terminal. I will see that, and you get that, and you will see how other people are creating. So there are like currently 20 or 30 examples as a blueprint. I will share the link in the next slide, I think, and then you can download and see. The other thing that is good for you if you're a developer to spend time investigating is a query API. So the queries, if you know like a query parameter in the link, in this case, you can add multiple parameters. For example, theme, that theme or that plugin or those plugins in a link, and it will automatically install the environment and it will add those plugins. And you can see what is also available through the query API. GitHub proxy, is basically for automation. So let's say that you're developing a plugin and you created a new PR or a new fix is introduced in a GitHub, you put it there. Again, if that needs to be tested or my manager needs to test that, he needs to download the whole code, he needs to have installation, etc. With GitHub Proxy, you get a link to the PR, for example. You enter that link in the Playground. Playground will install WordPress, add all the things it needed, and it will load the change you made, and the person can test it in 5 minutes. And this is very good, again, if you're testing, for example, CSS like display none or something, you don't need to spin up everything. If you're just testing if this template loads, again, this is just a click, you don't need, and then you can say, yes, tested, approved. This is if the person needs to test. This also can be scripted in the pipelines, and this can be automated. Like you can run the test, you can catch with the unit test or with the end-to-end testing, and you can just confirm and merge the PR. So there is a big potential here. And the fourth thing is WP Now. I don't know if you're familiar with that, WP Now. So if you don't want to use the WordPress thing to run the Playground, you can install it. You just need the Node.js. And then you go to your terminal, you do WP Now with a couple of parameters we will see, and you will spin it locally the same thing as the Playground spin. And we're going to see that. So this is also very good. And that is the only way you can script it in the pipelines or in any automation, because you cannot use the third-party WordPress servers. On this example, I know that you all know this is like creating a new page, but the purpose of this example, and there is a link below, is you can see that it's playground.wordpress.net, and there is a slash, and there are query parameters now. So there is a plugin. I'm installing a Gutenberg because of the, you can have it without the plugin, but the plugin has the new changes. And then there is the link to WP admin post new. So this will tell the Playground to open a new post or a new page, whatever you want. And like there is a mode seamless, just not to ask any questions, and you can see multiple ones. So on a simple example, this would be on opening this link, installing a Gutenberg plugin, adding you as an editor to the website, allowing you to test now any block with one click. If you ask, there is no limit for the query parameters. You can add 100 if you want. Again, when it starts to get a lot, it won't be readable. That's why we use blueprints. We are going to see one example. But like for 5, 10, 20 things, this is perfect to test something. This can also be used if you are like just showcasing your product or plugin. You can install dependencies if the plugin has a dependency. So it's very quick with just adding a couple of parameters into the link. GitHub proxy with full, this is from the website. I just copy paste what can be done. And as you see, and this is like more for developers, but I just want to mention. So there are multiple options here. You can go for a branch, from a PR, from a commit, or full release, depending how you are using a GitHub. So they're like, again, if let's say you do releases, that is once a month, when all the commits come to the release, you fetch a link, you put it in a Playground, anybody can test that release. It can easily be tested with multiple PHP versions, with multiple WordPress versions. Also, what I found through the experience is that like if you're developing a plugin, you test it and you said everything is working. You get your Q&A or another developer who says, yes, but on a website I have a plugin, let's say Hello Dolly, it doesn't matter. And when I activate Hello Dolly, I'm getting a fatal error. I was like, I didn't test that case. And then in order to test that case, you need to spin up everything. In this case, you can just add Hello Dolly, see, is it working or not, and just continue. So it will save a lot of time. And especially if you're doing any kind of automation and writing like end-to-end tests, like this is like visiting a page, seeing the fatal error, saying commit is not approved. So like, I would strongly recommend to go to this and test, especially if you're using like a GitHub and this kind of way of developing. I know, again, it's small letters, but the big link on the top, this is the official WordPress GitHub with blueprints. And you can go there, you can find a lot of examples. My point with the slide was that, like, if you see everything is in like 2 or 3 lines, so you don't need to learn everything. Like, you can change, it's basically step. For example, the step is installing a plugin, and then you need to define either is it on the WordPress org or it's on a GitHub, and like, you just define a slug if there is a slug, and it will add that plugin to the blueprint. So it's pretty easy. Also, this example also shows, like, if you want to import, if you did a test import in WordPress or WooCommerce, you know that there are like 10 posts or 10 products that you can import from the importer. You can do this in like 3 lines again, defining the link to the file. Usually that would be a GitHub with the XML or JSON, and you just import the file. This is like 3 lines of code. It's pretty easy. And like, again, not for the designers and Q&A, this is more for developers. You would make for them the blueprint instead of the query API, and then they will just run it in the background. The fourth thing I said, so let's say you are traveling, you don't have internet, you want to test something, you want your local environment, but really local environment, not, because if you go to the playground is online. If you don't have internet connection, that will not work. So basically, there is like a definition is like, again, this is not full environment for developing. This is not instead of a Docker, instead of the local, instead of the mom, plum, whatever you're using. So this is just to speed up some things. And like, if you want to install it or have it on your laptop, the only requirement is Node.js. Okay, you need to have Node.js. Everything else, you don't need to have a PHP version. You don't need to have MySQL, etc. So when you install it, this is one simple example, is that you go to your folder, the plugin, the theme, the empty folder if you want, and this command will run for you WordPress version 6.4 and PHP 8.0 in your browser, of course. When this everything builds, it will open the browser, the link will be localhost at some port, and you will get the same thing you get on the playground. Why is this good? Again, if you're a developer, you would create a script that on every commit, for example, you can test standard things, for example, for fatal errors, for design breaking up, or with anything. This is like a couple of lines of code. Like, if you're doing npm install in that script, you can do this as well. And it can improve your code. It can overcome some issues with testing and everything. So this is also very good to investigate. Like, of course, I just put 2 parameters with WordPress version and the PHP. You can add everything here. There is a parameter to add a theme, to add a plugin. Like, everything you can do with the query API, you can do it here. I just wanted to introduce you to this, and like, you need to spend a little bit time or some kind of workshop. Tomorrow also, if you are on contributor day, we can discuss. I will be around. I can show you, like, this is also real life examples, but we can define it on a laptop and you can see the whole process. But like, this is worth of investigating if you're a developer and if you're creating your theme or your plugin. Before questions, this is the official channel of Playground on WordPress official Slack. So all the questions, all the current state of development, you can find there. And of course, you can ask now question. You can find me after the talk, or you can find me tomorrow on the contributor day. So yeah.